Hey everyone, welcome back to Mental Training Thursdays. This week's topic is going to be about tips for motivation, but we wanted to actually share a comment that was sent to us after last week's discussion on the power of gratitude.
Yeah, so the comment that was left with us is, I just did the mental training from last week and shed tears of gratitude. So for Mac and Rachel, how would you reflect on this statement of gratitude that was shared with us?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is when we are practicing gratitude, we're typically reflecting on things. And so I want to take this opportunity to reflect on the past 8 weeks and the skills that we have been teaching you. A lot of them are interconnected, right? So if we think about mindful awareness and the power of thoughts or self-talk, for instance, with mindfulness and being aware, you're training that mind muscle so that you can create awareness around unhelpful thoughts. And then once you have that awareness, you can create a little bit of space and sort of go, oh, this thought's not so helpful. But that's where then self-talk comes in, because then you're able to refocus on the thoughts that are helpful for performance, for life, and perhaps even managing difficult situations. The other piece with mindfulness is that patience piece with the training and consistency over time. And I think with all of the skills, the goal there is, and this includes the gratitude, is to create some flexibility in our minds. And I like to call it psychological flexibility. So the more that you're able to just kind of go with the flow and what's going on up here, the easier that it's going to be to live your everyday lives amidst the challenges with COVID and also perform.
You know, I really responded and reacted to that comment of shedding tears of gratitude, because when I thought about what is it like to actually emote and shed tears and be grateful for certain things, and I was thinking about how gratitude, we can have gratitude for things that are both positive, but we can also have an experience of gratitude even when things are challenging. And I was just reflecting, as Rachel was as well, on how in the past 8 weeks we've talked a lot about different topics that have been ways to support someone on a holistic level and then on a performance level, and that some of those topics have been more about how to do the things, and some of the other topics have also been about the challenges that we've faced both during this time during COVID and also the challenges that we face in our day-to-day lives, and how things like the connections that we have to others, and sometimes the connections that can be lost for a number of reasons, are things that we can still be grateful for, and that there's still a process of grief and loss that we all go through, even if we're grateful for something positive that we've had. So I think about gratitude that we can have where we're both so happy to have had an experience like being able to play a sport, but then also having those tears of gratitude that can also feel a little bit hard or sad because it might be over if you are a graduated athlete, for instance. So with that in mind, we wanted to give you a little preview of some of the topics that are coming up in the next few weeks, because we do want to continue to be grateful for the things that we can use our psychological flexibility to help adapt where our minds are going, and how that can be something that we can use and harness as a power for us. And so today's topic is going to be about motivation, but then some of the other things we'll be talking about in the future weeks to come are about how we can control those controllables. And that does entail a lot of psychological flexibility to shift that focus towards the things that are in our grasp. Things like how to boost our happiness, returning to that joy of sport, and being able to seize the opportunity even when other things might be happening that might make it feel harder to grasp onto. So thank you for the comments, and please feel free to keep them coming, comments or questions. You can email me at mac.brown@colorado.edu, and we'll take a little bit of time to answer them next week.
So as Mac mentioned, today's topic is motivation. It's something that we all need to get things done, to perform. And I think in today's time, it might be a little challenging to find that motivation. So we thought that we would start with a metaphor to get us going with some common a common theme to surround us with metaphor, and that is gardening. It's that time of year, and so I think the first one of the major things to think about with gardening is good soil, right? So whatever it is that you decide to plant in your garden, it won't grow well unless you have healthy soil. A gardener spends a lot of time, energy, and expense to improve the soil of their garden and create a strong, rich, durable soil. They do this by adding compost, manure, and other nutrients to the soil in order to create an environment that's conducive to vibrant growth. Creating a truly great soil can take years. But by laying down this strong foundation, it will be much more likely that the garden will yield a beautiful, strong crop. And so when we think about mental skills training, our training Thursdays, the skills that you're learning, it's this foundation that you're building and the consistency of that training over time that will help to build your garden. In the same way, you need to build a strong foundation for motivation to occur. And one of those things is something that we've already done, which is mindfulness. And mindfulness training, I like to call it your daily dose on a consistent basis. And the other piece to mindfulness is the self-compassion piece. And so thinking of these skills that we're putting in your tool belt or your garden as little seeds that you're planting. And in order for those seeds to grow over time, it's important to have patience with yourself and work at it, right? A gardener needs to be consistent and work at their garden and till the soil so that their seeds can flourish. And so when we think about motivation in that way, one skill that can be helpful for motivation, especially if you're having a hard time finding the motivation, is self-compassion. And so Mac is going to give us a self-compassion break by running us through an exercise.
So the self-compassion break is really important, right? Like as Rachel was saying, to have that foundation, you really need to have the soil ready and prepared. And so this exercise is to help you tap into and maybe even create some space for that self-compassion in yourself and in your life. Before I go into it, just real briefly, I wanted to let you know there are three main components that go into compassion, mindfulness definitely being one of them, where there's a courageous presence to be paying attention to what your current experiences are, and that's a key part of compassion. The other two include self-kindness rather than self-judgment, and the other one being common humanity, that we all are not alone. But sometimes we can get into that place of the problem is with me rather than recognizing other people might be having this challenge as well. So to do this exercise, what I want you to do and invite you to do is to first think about something that you're struggling with in your life right now. For the purposes of this mental training Thursday, motivation might be that thing. But if there's anything else, I invite you to let that come into your mind. And feel free to use just like that thing that's going to be most relevant to you now. You want to choose something that's going to be on a scale of 1 to 10, like a 4. You don't want it to be too overwhelming or challenging to start this practice because, again, this is a practice. It's something that you have to get used to. So with all that framing in mind, feel free to take a deep breath through your nose, down into your stomach and diaphragm. You can allow your eyes to close if you're comfortable with that. And I'm going to invite you to play whatever that internal struggle or challenge is. Let it play out as a story in your mind's eye. What's happening? You can let your mind run away with that narrative for a little bit and see what comes up for you. When you feel like you're really in touch with what's going on in your life and how it feels, what I'll do is say a few phrases to help you recall those 3 components of self-compassion. So the first phrase is, "This is a moment of suffering." And please feel free to use any language that really speaks to you, that sends that message home. That might be, "This is really hard," or "This is really difficult." This is allowing you to turn your attention towards acknowledging that this moment is hard for you, for us. Now, also remembering as your next phrase and next step that suffering, struggle, difficulty, challenge, whatever that word is that fits for you, this is part of life. Remember that you're not the only one who feels this way, and this is normal. Okay, so again, just remembering suffering is a part of life, and because of this, we want to open our hearts to ourselves. And to help you do this, I want to invite you to put both hands over the center of your chest, if that feels comfortable, over your heart center. You can take a moment to feel the warmth of your hands against your chest, maybe the pressure, the gentle touch. And as you hold your hands here, if that is comfortable for you, the third phrase being, "May I be kind to myself. May I give myself what I need in this moment of struggle, difficulty, challenge." Maybe it's something like, "May I be strong. May I be patient. May I be courageous." Maybe it's something like, "I accept myself and my imperfections as I am." It's important through this exercise to open up to saying any kind, supportive language to yourself about whatever it is you're going through. And if it's helpful, you can frame it and hear it being said to yourself as if you were talking to a good friend or maybe one of your teammates. This might be uncomfortable, and again, it's just the beginning of a new process. So see if just for this moment, as you continue to stay here, you can allow yourself to accept your own care, kindness, and understanding. You can go ahead and start in your mind, just letting go of those phrases. If you had your hands at your heart center, you can let them drop. And just with this moment, with your eyes still closed, if that felt comfortable for you, just notice what you're feeling now before we wind down. You may be feeling compassion in this moment. You might be feeling the opposite, or you might be feeling nothing. But what we're doing, as Rachel mentioned, is planting those seeds of compassion and letting go of expectations. Things take time. Just allow yourself in this moment to be exactly who you are, exactly as you are. So you can take one more deep breath in, and when you're ready, you can open your eyes.
So with that, we encourage you to practice self-compassion as you go through your days and notice how that might impact your motivation to perhaps get an assignment done, get work done, or engage in your exercise programs as athletes. So try to take that self-compassion break and just notice and allow yourself to be where you are, as you are, and continue to till your garden of mental skills. So with that, we will end with a quote today. Next week's topic is controlling the controllables. So please join us if that's of interest to you. But for now, the quote is this: "If you feel like you're losing everything, remember that trees lose their leaves every year, and they still stand tall and wait for better days to come.